Let's talk about the future of work. But I want you to forget all the dry statistics, all the buzzwords. Because the future of work isn't really a report. It's a story that's being written as we speak. So today, we're going to look at the map for this new world, the timeline for our journey, and the role you play in writing the next chapter.
Okay, I want you to picture this with me. It's the year 2035. You wake up not to some awful alarm, but to gentle life. And your commute? It doesn't exist. Because your work, your most important creative tasks, has been intelligently gathered and delivered right to you, ready for the moment you're at your best. Now look, this isn't some sci-fi movie. It's the destination that today's technology is already pointing us toward. But that all sounds a little too perfect, right? It begs this massive question. How in the world do we get from our kind of chaotic present to that streamlined future? Well, to navigate all the change that's coming, you need a map. And that is exactly what we're going to unpack right now.
Right. Every big journey needs a good map. And for this one, we can use a really simple but powerful framework that divides the entire, confusing landscape of technology into 4 distinct kingdoms. Once you get your head around these, you can place any new innovation on the map and know exactly how to think about it.
This right here simplifies everything. Instead of thinking about technology as this one big, scary monolith, we can plot any innovation on 2 really simple axes. How much does it cost? And, well, how well does it actually work? This gives us 4 unique territories, and each one has its own rules. So let's start exploring. First up, we've got the Moonshot Kingdom. This is the land of wild, audacious dreams. Think fusion energy, or, true artificial general intelligence. The costs are absolutely astronomical, and success is never, ever guaranteed. These are the huge, high-risk, high-reward bets that might take decades to pay off. But when they do, oh man, they change everything.
Next, we move into the mission-critical kingdom. Over here, the technology absolutely works, no question about it, but it costs a fortune. This is where you find massive enterprise AI systems and those super sophisticated robots in factories. The question here isn't if it works, it's if you can afford it.
Down in the bottom left, we've got this really tantalizing place, the Magic Bullet Kingdom. The tech here is affordable, which is great. But, and it's a big but, it's just not quite there yet. It's a little unreliable, a little buggy. Early solar panels lived here for years. They were cheap, but just not efficient enough. This is the frontier where you have to be patient.
And that brings us, finally, to the promised land. This is the place all technology eventually wants to end up, the mass market kingdom. Low cost, high feasibility. This is tech that just works flawlessly and is accessible to pretty much everyone. Your smartphone lives here. GPS lives here. And 20 years ago, a lot of this stuff was a complete moonshot.
Okay, so if you take one thing away from this map, it has to be this. There is a powerful, invisible gravity that pulls all technology from all those other 3 kingdoms straight towards the mass market. Costs fall, reliability improves, and what was once a crazy dream becomes a daily utility. This migration is going to happen. The only real question is, will you be ready when it does? So we have our map of the terrain. The next logical question is, what does the road ahead actually look like? Well, researchers surveyed over 570 experts to create a kind of consensus forecast, a collective prophecy, if you will, for the next 50 years of work, and the story it tells is pretty fascinating.
This timeline really does tell a story. We're right here, at the very beginning, in what they're calling the age of perpetual learning. Next up, an explosion of new jobs we literally can't even imagine today. Now, the experts do warn of a potential reckoning in the 2030s if we don't manage this transition well. But beyond that, the vision becomes incredibly hopeful. An era of working with robot colleagues that leads to a new human renaissance. I want to zoom in on that evolution because it's key. Right now, in the very near future, we're talking about automating tasks, not entire jobs. All the repetitive, boring stuff starts to evaporate, leaving more room for the meaningful, human work. But fast forward to 2037, and that vision totally shifts to working alongside robots, where collaboration, not replacement, becomes the main idea.
And this, right here, this is honestly the most profound and hopeful part of the entire forecast. The ultimate goal isn't just about efficiency, it's about freedom. The idea is that by automating all the mechanical stuff, we free ourselves up for a renaissance of human creativity and craft. When machines are handling the drudgery, we finally get to focus on what it really means to be human.
Okay, so we have a map of the landscape. We have a timeline for the journey. That brings everything back to the single most important question. What do you do now? How do you actually prepare for all of this? Thankfully, The research gives us a really clear strategy, broken down into 4 essential lessons.
First, start thinking in quadrants. When you hear about a new technology, place it on the map. Second, you've got to recognize that your own skills are on a journey too. What's a specialized talent today might be automated tomorrow. Third, and this is huge, adopt an augmentation mindset. It's not you versus the machine, it's you with the machine. And finally, and maybe most importantly, prepare for a renaissance, not an apocalypse.
And that last point really gets to the core of it, right? Preparing for that renaissance. The winning strategy is to double down on the skills that are just stubbornly human. Things like creative synthesis, pulling together complex ideas, emotional intelligence, making tough ethical judgments, and maybe my favorite, the ability to ask those weird, insightful questions a machine would never even think of. This is where our real, lasting value is going to be. Which brings us to the end of our explainer, but really, it's the beginning of yours. Because this was never just a story about technology. It was always a story about human agency. The future isn't just something that happens to us, it's something we get to build.
Look, the technology is going to arrive. The timeline will unfold one way or another. But your personal narrative, the way you navigate this change, the skills you decide to build, the meaning you choose to create, that is entirely up to you. The most important pages are still completely blank.
So, I'll leave you with the one question that matters most. When you look back on this incredible moment of transition, years from now, what story will you tell? The pen is in your hand.
You know, we're living in a really interesting time, a kind of paradox. The very same technology that promises to make our world seamless and intelligent, well, it's also the source of its biggest weakness. It's like a two-sided coin. On one side, you've got this incredible, mind-blowing promise, and on the other, a pretty sobering reality. So, let's start with the good stuff, the promise. Just for a second, picture a world that's, well, it's impossibly helpful. Your phone doesn't just buzz with a reminder. Nope, it sees an email you sent and proactively cancels a conflicting meeting for you. Your car doesn't just follow a map, it reroutes you before you even know there's traffic ahead. And look, this isn't some far-off science fiction dream. This is happening right now, getting woven into the fabric of our everyday life. And then, wham, the reality check. In July of 2024, that beautifully connected world just stopped. A single faulty software update from a company called CrowdStrike set off a global digital firestorm. We're talking 8.5 million computers crashing at once. Flights were grounded, stranding people everywhere. Banks just froze up. Hospitals were literally thrown back to using pen and paper. It was this huge, jarring reminder that the very systems that give us these amazing abilities are resting on a surprisingly fragile foundation. So let's really dig into that first side of the coin, this incredible promise of what people are starting to call living intelligence. This is all about the shift from tech being a passive tool to being an active, intelligent partner in our lives. And the key to this whole future is a concept called Agentic AI. Really, you can boil it down to just one word: proactiveness. We're moving from an AI that just sits there waiting for you to ask it a question to one that actually takes the first step. We're all super used to reactive AI, right? The passive assistant just waiting for a command. But agentic AI, it's a total game changer. It's an active collaborator. It doesn't just answer your question like, hey, is my package late? It anticipates you're going to be annoyed, contacts you first, and offers a solution before you even knew there was a problem to begin with. And hey, this isn't just theory. Check out these examples of agentic AI that are already out there doing stuff. You've got Chemcro, an AI that's not just crunching numbers, it's literally inventing new molecules. Then there's SciAgent, a team of AIs that actually debate each other to speed up scientific discovery. And Ema, a customer service AI that learns and gets better with every single call, in real time. These aren't just tools, they're becoming engines of innovation. Okay, and if that wasn't wild enough for you, get this. Researchers have created something they call organoid intelligence. They took about 1 million living human brain cells, put them in a petri dish, hooked them up to a computer, and taught them how to play the video game Pong. I'm not kidding. It's a biological computer, a thinking machine made of actual living tissue. This is the absolute bleeding edge of that promise. But, every promise has its peril. With all this incredible interconnected power comes a new kind of weakness. So now it's time to flip the coin and look at the other side, the peril of the invisible threads holding our world together. Let's jump back to that CrowdStrike outage for a minute. The estimated cost of that one little glitch, $5 billion. That's the price tag for just one weak link in our global system. A number like that really forces you to stop and ask some very, very hard questions. So what exactly did we learn from that $5 billion lesson? Well, that outage basically lit up 3 huge vulnerabilities in our digital world. First, the fragmentation problem. Companies have this messy patchwork of security tools that don't talk to each other, leaving these huge gaps. Then you've got the resilience gap. Some companies got back online in hours, but others were down for days. It showed this massive difference in how prepared everyone was. And finally, the accountability maze. I mean, when everything and everyone is connected, who's actually responsible when it all goes wrong? It's a question we're still trying to figure out. All this reliance on tech has also created a new kind of economic power, data. You know, economists always talked about 3 things you need to make stuff: land, labor, and capital. Well, now there's a 4th, and it's the data we all generate every single day. And this has kicked off something people are calling the data farmers' rebellion. This idea is sparking a whole new movement. Workers are realizing, hey, my data is the fuel that's powering this AI revolution, and they're starting to demand a say. So what are they doing? They're forming data cooperatives. Instead of one person trying to negotiate with a tech giant, good luck with that, they're pooling their data together. This gives them the collective power to demand fair pay and control. It's like a 21st century labor union, but for the information age. And finally, there's the environmental side of this peril, the sheer physical weight of all this digital brainpower. Training and running these huge AI models takes a staggering amount of energy. Just look at this chart. We are on a path for a 10-fold increase in power demand for AI training by 2026 alone. This isn't some tiny side effect. It's a massive and growing environmental cost that we just can't ignore. Okay, so we've got this amazing promise on one hand and this undeniable peril on the other. So the big question is, what are we doing about it? And this brings us to the most important part of the story, how we're actively working to build trust and resilience into these new systems. First off, we have to admit how big of a challenge this is. According to Pew Research, 52% of Americans are more concerned than excited about AI. Only 10% are more excited. That's a massive trust gap. So how on earth do you build trust in a system that can feel like a total black box? Well, one of the most fascinating solutions comes from FICO, of all places. Yeah, the credit score company. They're using blockchain as a permanent, unchangeable record of every single decision made while an AI is being developed. Think of it like a flight recorder or a conscience for an AI. Nothing can be hidden, nothing can be changed later. Like they say, it's designed to keep everyone honest. And the results? They've been incredible. Since they put this system in place, FICO has seen problems with their AI models drop by over 90%. It's just powerful proof that when you can show exactly how your AI works, you don't just build trust, you actually get better, more reliable results. Now, what about building resilience? For that, we've got the amazing story of DeepSeek. So in early 2025, this Chinese company was facing restrictions on getting the most powerful computer chips. They couldn't just throw money and hardware at the problem like everyone else. They had to be smarter. And boy, were they. They built a revolutionary new AI model for a tiny fraction of the usual cost.
This change in thinking is so important. See, the old way was to build these giant brute force models that are amazing at matching patterns. But DeepSeek pioneered a smarter, more efficient approach that focuses on step-by-step reasoning, kind of like how a person would work through a hard math problem. It's cheaper, it uses way less energy, and it shows there's a more resilient and diverse way forward for AI. It proves that innovation isn't just about having the biggest computer in the room.
So where does all this leave us? We've seen the dazzling promise, the serious perils, and some of the really clever solutions being built as we speak. And it all really comes down to one simple idea. The future is not something that just happens to us. Technology isn't destiny. Every single step from building AI we can actually trust, to organizing for data rights, to innovating more efficient models, every one of those is a choice. The story of our AI future isn't being written by the machines, it's being written by us. And that leaves us with the ultimate question. We're facing this two-sided coin of promise and peril, but we have the tools. We have the ingenuity to build a future that's more resilient, more fair, and more trustworthy. So what story will we choose to write?